Well, welcome everyone out to another social hour. Here with Alex McKinley, as always, and I'm Dave Kaiser. And with us already, right out the gates, we have with us a special guest. We have Yvonne Ellison. So, Yvonne, we're going to get to know you and kind of talk about your role over the next about half hour, and then we have another guest that we're going to bring in. But let's dive right into who you are. Do you want to give us a little bit of background of tell us what your current role is briefly, and then give us a little bit of background, and we'll ask you more about your role.
Of course. So I am currently the AAPCCA Chapter Advisory Board Executive Chair. And so we have 8 regions that we cover. So we have 16 representatives, along with an executive board. Myself, Nicole, and Kathy make up the executive board. And so we work between the board and AAPC. Our main jobs are to support local chapters. And we all have been chapter officers at one point. We love to serve as mentors, providing education, giving the resources and tools that the chapter officers need to succeed.
Yvonne, what chapter did you lead when you were a chapter officer?
Provo, Utah.
Okay. And for what I understand, well, I know this, and you know this, that the chapter advisory board recently changed its name from board of directors. Do you have any insight on why they did that?
Well, I think sometimes it can be a little confusing to say that we're a board of directors. That makes it sound like we make some big decisions. When you make it more appropriately as the chapter advisory board, it truly is what we are. We find out what's happening in the community with the local chapters, bring that information, and we advise, we give resources, we give support. So I think it's very appropriate. I like to think of the acronym as the CAB, where we start where you are and help you get to where you want to go.
I love it.
And you've been involved with the cab for how long?
This
You
is my third
served on
year.
it, the third year. Okay. And what are some of those roles within the cab? Did you kind of have to work your way up to the role? Because you said executive chairman, chairperson, chair. I'm not sure how
Chair, just chair.
executive chair. But that's also equivalent of the president, right?
Correct. So I have the honor of being able to kind of be the spokesperson to lead and guide. We have 3 committees that are with our chapter advisory group, and there are 8 regions. So now that I've had the honor to accept this role and responsibility, I'll continue to serve for an additional 3 years. So when you come onto the CAB, you're put onto a committee. Everybody works together to help for the purpose of supporting local chapters and to be an ambassador. All of us have an enthusiasm and excitement to be a part of AAPC. And so we have some insight, and if we don't have answers, we know where to go. And so with that, typically a person will come on for 8 years. For the exception, this year we have 2 that will serve for 1 year. And they do have the option to continue if they apply as other people do. But once you come on, you're selected and you're chosen to go into 3 committees. We have the professional development group, and they are the ones that help with officer training and choosing the officer of the year. So we've just finished a lot of that stuff. And then we have the public relations who help on Facebook page. They are the ones that truly interface with our local chapters on the Facebook side of things. And then we have our new committee, it's officer support. So now that Marnie has retired, she had a lot of shoes to fill, and it takes a whole committee and a whole tribe to help and fit those shoes. So we're going to try and help with closing and supporting opening of chapters, making the meeting in a box. And so each of us have a responsibility, but the core responsibility is to be able to support local chapters. We have meet and greets. In fact, we have one tonight for Region 2, which is the Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but it's not exclusive. Anybody can join, and that'll be tonight. Facebook page has that information on the officer only page. But we meet to ask to support people who have questions. So it's a great time to come interact with other local chapters, officers, and we're normal people. We're each having challenges, learning how to be the best coders that we can, staying ethical, asking questions. How do we serve our local chapters? And so this is a place, it's kind of the grassroots area of asking questions. So we make that available quarterly. Each region meets quarterly. And so that's at least 4 times, what, 8 times that you can actually meet with us. So tonight will be that great opportunity. And if people recognize that, one, we're just like everybody else. 2, we have the same questions. We can learn from each other and be inspired by each other. Recognizing that as a resource, we can be successful. We're really here to support chapters and the members.
Yvonne, you are not like everybody else. And I want to dig into that because you have a unique background. But Dave, I'm going to shift gears real quick and we'll hop back over to Yvonne's story. Dave, tell our audience what you're doing today. You're juggling right now.
Oh, what I'm doing today. Yeah. So right now we actually have one of our virtual boutique conferences going on. It's called RevCon, and it's all about revenue cycle mastery. So all the different ins and I mean, all the parts of it make up the revenue cycle. So really, it's this all-encompassing conference. It's 2 days, and it's just one track. So it's kind of a shorter, smaller conference. But we're on our second day of that, and we kicked that off this morning with a discussion about another discussion about AI. We had Nicola Sahar on there from Semantic Health, and just addressing everyone. And got a few more breakout sessions, and going to wrap it up with a networking lunch in a few. But that's what we're doing today.
You are like, I just saw Wicked. You are like the man behind the curtain, pulling all the levers and making this thing happen, aren't you?
I feel like I used to pull a lot more levers, probably unnecessarily, but I've simplified things. But it's still fun to kind of know how things work behind the scenes and to be involved in that way. Yeah, it's fun. I'll need to see Wicked because I still haven't seen it. So,
Oh man. Okay, you're like the only guy that hasn't seen Wicked. So
oh,
come on.
really? I'm up in the mountains, not a lot of nice movie theaters, and I'm kind of a diva when it comes to theaters. If I'm gonna go and pay the money, I want the reclining seats with the,
Yeah,
gotta be
there you
nice.
go. Hey, I just want to give it, I know you're juggling a lot, so I'm just looking at the Facebook feed and just want to give a shout out to Amber Simon, who's with us, Tiffany Roach from Kentucky, Patsy Mintz from North Carolina, our friend Beverly Johnson, Margaret Wilson. Let us know if you've seen Wicked, you guys, and what was your favorite. Do you see Dave as the wizard pulling the levers to HealthCon Productions? I do, absolutely.
Nice. Well, then who would you be?
Who
I
would I
mean,
be? I'm one of
yeah,
those a flying monkey.
a flying monkey. Yeah, I somehow knew you were gonna pick that. So,
Well, Yvonne would be Glenda.
Linda, yeah, the
Yeah,
good witch. I can
You
see
yeah.
have
that.
many opportunities now, right? You have the movie theater, but you also have the play, and it's showing everywhere. In fact, I've seen the movie, and I'm going back to see the play again. Utah has
Oh
the
yeah.
Apple Theater, and so we have tickets for that. But I originally saw it at the Pantages in California, and of course, Vegas has been a great venue as well. Got to go see it.
That's cool. So some of your background, I mean, we wanted to kind of delve into that too. So, you have some interest in theater, it sounds like. Do you perform yourself or just like to
No,
attend?
no, I like to support the theaters. I love expression. I love the arts. I oil painted when I was about 12 years old. My grandmother, when she turned 65, was always trying to look for new things to do and decided to take a community class in oil painting. Found out that she was gifted. And so for the next 30 years, she oil painted and displayed her work in libraries. And so now she's passed away at 101. But from 65, she learned a new talent. And I was one of the fortunate grandchildren that got to go with her to some of her classes and recognize that I love art. I love the expression of the humanities. It truly is a part of us that keeps our well-being balanced. So yes, I like to go. Don't get to go very often, but I have gone to our local high school and in the local community theaters. Our children have loved to either perform as actors, just more for fun, nothing serious. And each of them has had an opportunity to learn a musical instrument or be involved in choir, and that's opened opportunities to travel. In fact, my third son had the opportunity to be in the choir at our local high school, and they went on a trip to Disneyland in California, in Anaheim. And in Anaheim, they have the Pantages Theater. And so the school purchased tickets for them to go to Wicked, and they were going on a Thursday. I flew out with my daughter, myself, and I got tickets for my mother. My mother was living in California at the time, and it was a great opportunity. So the three of us went to see the theater on Tuesday, and loved it. Oh, it's my favorite. I've seen other programs, but I absolutely love the message behind Wicked, and highly encourage everybody to go. Now that it's a movie, it opens more opportunity for people to hear the story, but I still think theater is the best place to watch it.
That's awesome. And what a great review. So
That's right.
you can take that snippet and whoever, made it NBC can run with that. That was a really glowing review. I'll need to see it. I'll need to see the movie. I only know probably a song or two from the actual musical anyway. So, but
A lot of,
sorry, Alex, go
well, I
ahead.
was going to say a lot of our viewers have seen it. And I'm sure there's some way we could tie in the revenue cycle to the Wicked story. We'll try that maybe for next time.
Yeah, maybe an upcoming HealthCon skit. We'll have to include it. Something relevant.
There you go.
We tried doing some Barbie promo when Barbie was relevant, and I don't know how well that went.
It was fun to make.
It was fun to make. But Yvonne, you've been so just more about you and your background. Did you grow up in the northern Utah area? Have you been pretty much there for a while, or
Southern California. So I grew up in a town near
okay.
West Covina, and I came out to Utah for school and
Mhm.
stayed. Raised my family. Every now and again, I'll go back. I still have an anchor in California. Majority of my family is from Southern California. My sister lives in Huntington Beach. She raised her daughter in the San Diego area. My brother lived in Laguna Niguel for a period of time. We love the beaches. But
Yeah.
I also love the quietness and our beautiful mountains here in Utah. We have such a diversity of places to visit between the Red Rock and then, of course, our mountains. I have my youngest son who enjoys snowboarding on his days off from work. But my husband was a park ranger to support his high school teaching. Well, he was a school teacher in junior high, not high school, junior high. And so we love hiking and enjoying being outdoors. It's just a great recharge. But in Utah, we have quite the options. We can go snowing and hike these beautiful mountains, but then we can also go down south and look at the Red Rock and look at these beautiful waterfalls. There's really something for everybody.
Yeah, it's super diverse and a beautiful state to live in. As Alex and I know, we've lived in Utah for quite a long time, but California has so many beautiful parts to it too. I think I gave up on California a few years ago just for various other reasons, but having lived in it now more recently, I'm like, man, California's pretty great too.
Yes, the
Beautiful.
sunsets by the beach are absolutely gorgeous. I lived in the Mojave Desert for a period of time, and the desert sunsets are absolutely spectacular as well. But
Mm-hmm.
anytime I need a break, I can go see my sister in Huntington Beach. We have the Allegiance Airlines in Provo, and so for very minimal cost, I can hop on a plane, go visit her, and come back.
That's awesome. So, now when you moved to Utah, you said went there for school, you ended up staying. Did you start into the healthcare industry right out of school, or what was your education and career experience like?
So, interesting enough, I actually had an interest in finance. I wanted to learn a little bit more about money, how to invest, and that was the direction I wanted to go in. However, as I started taking classes, and this is why I highly recommend when someone starts their education to take their generals. As I had more exposure into the medical field, I found that that's where my heart and my passion was. And I was actually heading towards medical school when I met my husband. And we got to talking. I got so excited about building a life with him, and recognized that I probably could tone down a little bit of my ambition and be home with our family. And I was for a period of time. And then about 22 years ago, my husband had some lab work that came back a little funny, and it required a bone marrow transplant. So it changed our life right on a heartbeat. And our income was gone. We recognized the importance of medicine and insurance, having to hop through loops of trying to get the insurance to cover what was in our coverage benefits. And so I learned the process of understanding your rights and knowing what was covered and what wasn't. So we did get his bone marrow transplant. He became disabled for a period of time, and I recognized the need to be able to support our family. We had 6 children at that time. And you can imagine the concern, how in the world am I going to take care of our mortgage and our family? And I also recognized the opportunity of working as a nurse. The nurses provided so much care and insight and information. And I truly fell in love with that aspect of being able to empower people with knowledge and also recognizing the need to know what was happening. So I embarked in a career of becoming a nurse. So I worked in the emergency room, critical care. Eventually, I became a hospitalist coordinator, which is the nurses that help organize the doctor, the internal medicine doctors. And then we visit the patients, ensure that their time is maximized and the patient has the care that they need to get in and out of the hospital. And then eventually an opportunity to transition to work for the state as a nurse investigator. So currently for the past 6 years, I've worked as a nurse investigator for the Office of Inspector General on the state level. And that's been exciting. It was a little bit of a challenge. Well, it's always a challenge. It's a new adventure every single day. But transitioning from taking care of patients directly to looking at the medical records and determining if it was appropriate and understanding rules and regulations. And you can understand the challenge of understanding medical coding, which became a part of this work. And that's when I was introduced to AAPC and learned of local chapters and was able to supplement the education I had in getting my certification. I was fortunate enough to be able to pass my exam the first time because of the great education I had at my local community college and then being able to actually support. So there's one thing to pass the exam, a whole nother ballgame to apply what you've learned and now you're certified to do. So local chapters gave me a place of networking, asking questions, finding the support I needed so that if I did have a question, I knew where to go. It's ongoing. Healthcare changes all the time, and it's so important to keep up with that. So I met the AAPC local chapter members, the officers, and sure enough, I had only been there about a year, and they needed an officer to fill the role of vice president. And I do ask questions, and I like to be involved, but I thought, I've only known this for just a few months. I don't know if I'm ready for this. And of course, I got the whole violin story of we're going to close if you don't. And I thought, well, that's not a good place to be. And I want to keep coming. I said, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here. and all the support I needed was there. AAPC has such a well-organized program that not only was I given the tools and the resources and the training I needed, but the support was there. And of course, the very next year, all those that had been my co-officers said, well, we've been serving long enough. You're the president because no one else can fill that role. And again, I thought, oh no, how in the world? But wanting the chapter to continue, we had wonderful people who stepped up to be in the other roles. And then I met Marty. And the rest was history, right? I was so empowered by her kindness, her willingness to guide me through the process. We changed from one financial group to another, to a local community credit union, and she walked me through the process. And I have to say, I have always felt uplifted. I have loved the environment and the community that we have within AAPC. The medical coders have the biggest heart. And I love the fact that we know where to ask questions and that we're here to support each other. And so then Marty mentioned about the next level of being a part of the Chapter Advisory Board, which was the BOD before. And as there's the insecurity. Oh no, I'm not ready for this, but I love everything about AAPC. So let's see if I can serve even more people. So then that opportunity came my way. I think more than anything, something that I have learned is that I think the same experience that I had, many people have, that it feels very undaunting, but when you recognize that it's doable, that the resources are there, you really just need to have the mindset of, I'm willing to grow. I want to understand what my role is. I want to do well at my job, at my career, but I also want to interact with similar minded people. And I think if more people recognize that, we probably have a lot more people wanting to be chapter officers. It does seem to be a little scary of a position, but however, we do find that people who are willing to take that jump and become local chapter officers have so many benefits, and they stay friends for life, not only within their local community, but they have a chance to interact nationally, people from other states. And I think it's such an incredible community where we're here to contribute and add to our trade, to our skills of medical coding, add to that ethical value of keeping the integrity intact, knowing what we're doing, and recognizing we need each other to keep it accurate in the integrity of it all. Most importantly, oh gosh, I wish if I could tell and inspire someone, it would be to go to the HealthCon. Come to HealthCon. Just do it. If your employer will cover you, fantastic. If not, then set some money aside and come. That not only you're going to get the credits for minimal cost, but you're going to have this fire hydrant of information and resources. You'll know who to call when you're working on whatever it is you're working on, hospice, behavioral med, cardiac, and you meet the experts who are willing to share that information. You rub shoulders with them while you're having lunch. You get to know them as you're walking around. Everybody is so giving and willing. It's such a community of people that have knowledge and are very expert at their fields. And there's a whole gamma, right? Those of us that are still kind of freshly new, and those that truly have been around the block and seen all the changes, there is value for everybody. But most importantly, when you immerse yourself in that kind of a community, you have the benefit of knowledge, skills, resources, networking. There's a well-being of knowing that you're contributing to healthcare. You have something to bring to the table. You may not recognize it, but there are people that are just learning, and those that have been here a while. We all learn this new language, and we're able to contribute to each other. So it's been an honor, and I think that I think after the pandemic, there was something we came away with and we truly recognized, and that was the need of our well-being to connect with each other. And what better way than to serve as a local chapter officer to be able to volunteer, give back, make that connection, get out of ourselves for a while and benefit. You learn that you have strengths and creativity that you may not have realized you had. And
Yvonne,
so, yep.
I just want to read a few comments. So there are many chapter officers in the chat just sharing their great experiences as a chapter officer. Amber Simon says teamwork is dream work. We have a beautiful group in the AAPC group of officers. So there is a Facebook group for officers. If you're an officer,
Yes.
you can find that. There's one comment from a chapter officer, Patsy Mintz. She says that her Asheville, Hendersonville chapter needs help. She's a secretary and treasurer. She had some hiccups in her officer positions. It looks like the information is not being shared on the AAPC website. What's her process to get that resolved? Should she reach out to you directly or go into local officer group?
I'm so glad. One is asking, right? We don't know there's a need if you don't ask. If you go onto the AAPC website, you'll look under your directory. So every officer, once they've accepted their position, has a whole new area that is open to them. It's under local chapters. And if they go into the section that has a directory, they'll find their information, but there's also a tab that has recently changed over to CAB, Chapter Advisory Board, and she'll see her representatives for those areas. So that's exactly what we're here for. We're here to help support, especially those that are struggling. You can also come to the meet and greet tonight. I'd love to meet her. And so that information is on the Facebook page. Is she a member of the AAPC local chapters only 2025?
I don't know, but Patsy, if you are struggling to find that portal that Yvonne is talking about, message me directly and on Facebook, and then I'll make that connection. We'll just put you in touch with the region officers for that area, and they can help straighten out your challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
Is your meet and greet, Yvonne, is it in person only, or did you say that that was going to be live streamed?
Virtually live streamed.
Okay. And that's for any officers?
Yes, yes. In fact, I'll give you, let's see if I can share the link for tonight's meeting. Then is it better if I put it in the chat here?
You could put it in the chat, and then we'll put it in the Facebook chat, or Alex will grab it and put it in the Facebook.
You know, sometimes you put a link in and it's like 100 miles long.
Yep,
That's
I've got.
Sorry about
that. I see that, and he, this is for officers only, right?
Yes. Yes.
Officers only training?
No. It's actually a forum for them to come and ask their questions and allow us to help brainstorm together along with other local chapter officers. So it's kind of a powwow. We get together and we talk about solutions and ways to help you be successful.
Yeah, great spot for Patsy. You know, if you want to jump on that, you can get some ideas of how to get your chapter kind of jump started. Sounds like it might need a little bit of love.
We love the questions. In fact, we got a list of 17 that were struggling that didn't have chapter officers this year. And we split that amongst our regional representatives. And at this point, we have about 10 of them that we've recovered and we're offering support. So yes, asking the question is the very most important thing you can do. So thank you.
Thanks. This 30 minutes has flown.
It went by really fast. Yeah, that's great, Yvonne. Love your backstory and everything, and let us know how you got into it. And are you currently a nurse inspector while you're serving on the cab? Is that?
I am. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, some of the comments in the chat. Lori Jaramillo says, "I hear you, my friend. I had to volunteer twice now to keep our chapter from closing, especially since I helped get the chapter started." So, so there's the volunteer work. It's not easy work, right? There's all these chapters are probably in different states, some stronger than others. So
it may be challenging. However, it's very rewarding. And truly, if you organize your time, it doesn't take a whole lot more time, and it gives you something to even put on your resume. So it benefits you in many, many ways. You get to meet other people, you learn more resources, you recognize talents you might not have had or recognized you had. You learn to be organized. You're pretty much setting up the meeting, finding people to speak, which is easy to do if you're a Facebook member of the Officer Only 2025 page. And if you come to HealthCon, you'll learn more presenters and speakers. So you're truly just trying to bring that education, and it takes at least minimal of 3 officers. But you know what? You get to know those officers, they become friends, and you want to stay a part of this forever. So jump in, try it, let us train you. We had 93% of chapters have at least 2 officers at the training this time, very successful. And I'm looking forward to a successful year.
Yeah, you heard the call right there. Let us train you. So if you're feeling like you want to volunteer, but not sure if you have the skills or whatever, that doesn't matter. Just come. It's your desire to serve, and you'll be in this safety net of all of these experts and pros and this network of just amazing people that you probably want to get to know anyway. Let's be honest. Kathy Parker says she's made the best friends by being a chapter officer, and now she's serving on the cab as well. So Talia Fortier, I'm not sure if I said that right, says, "This is why I stepped up to revive my local chapter in Lakeland, Florida. It was on the cusp of closing, and I couldn't let the chapter that helped me begin this career close." It's an incredible experience, and I wish I had stepped up as an officer much sooner. So great job, Talia, and thanks for sharing your story too. It's awesome.
Love those comments. Thank you. Thank you. So there's two things that we want to focus on this year. One of them is finding your why. Why do you do what you do? And why serve? And the other one is not just come to meetings to get your CEUs, come to connect, empower, uplift. We all have something to bring to the table.
Love that. Well, thank you, Yvonne. We're gonna have you stay with us. And Alex, we have another guest, correct?
Yes, we do. It is Bill Fiala. He wrote this article in AAPC The Magazine this month,
You have
February
a physical
edition.
copy. Nice.
I'm in the office today. I have resources like crazy. I'm going to plug in my computer.
All right. Cool. Well, looks like we got Bill on camera. Welcome, Bill.
Greetings. How is everybody?
Doing great. Bill, where are you joining us from? What part of the nation?
I am joining you from Akron, Ohio, the bucolic Midwest.
Cool. The bucolic Midwest. Love that. All right. Well, cool. So Alex had he was holding up your magazine article.
I saw that. There it is again.
There it is. Yeah. The title of it is Legitimizing Psychedelic Medication Therapy. Um, and right from the get-go, it gets my gears turning of psychedelic medication therapies. And I've watched videos on YouTube and stuff. There's a lot out there. Do you want to kind of dive in and give us maybe a little brief synopsis of the article? And then I'm sure we have some questions to ask.
Sure. The piece is a vehicle. There's a fun reason for why I chose psychedelics as the vehicle for the discussion, and we can get into that if you want to have a little fun. But we selected the topic, the psychedelic medications, as a vehicle really to talk about the purpose of Category 3 codes and how they come about. If you look at, for example, the CPT code set for 2025, your readers are looking at that every year. They get their new code book and they're trying to figure out all of these new codes. About a third of the new codes are back in the back of the code book in the Category 3 section. And many of the line coders, that's a mystery. And they're not going to use those, or only a few of them if they're in specialties, subspecialties, tertiary care centers. So for many of your readers, that's kind of the mystery part of the code book. So we used the psychedelic drugs as sort of a vehicle to take a look at, well, how do these codes get created? What are they? And how do they get created? And we have these three new codes, and we sort of take a walk through the process of how they get created. It just happens to be that these psychedelic medications are in the news. As you said, hey, I've heard about these. And it's an interesting topic. We have the Hollywood actor recently who passed away as a result of a ketamine overdose. And again, it's something that everybody has heard about or read about, and that is a legitimate therapy. So we have something that can get everyone's attention, and we can then use that as a vehicle to say, now let's talk about how these codes are created. Everything that you'll find in that Category 3 section of CPT is functionally similar. We're talking about cutting edge medicine. We're talking about things that are going through drug trials right now. If you go back decades and you think about things like bariatric surgery. Bariatric surgery began in the Category 3 section of CPT. Hey, we have this new surgical technique. Does it work? Nobody knew. And we don't know until we get a code that we can have surgeons use so we can start counting how many times it's being done and then look at outcomes. Same thing here with the psychedelic medications. We're going to start counting how many times they're being used, and now we have codes that we can really count very specific circumstances and then specific cases in which they're used and start measuring outcomes. And as you see in the article, there are quite a few different trials, drug trials that are going on. And that's how you get a Category 3 code. One of the criteria, as you see in the piece, is there has to be a drug trial going on. So we have kind of a very interesting topic that we can use as a vehicle to help explain how do these mystery codes that many folks don't really understand or know a lot about, how do we explain how the mystery codes are created and used?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Using one in the or using the sort of interest or curiosity about the topic to talk about how the codes are created and educate around that. That's smart. That's really
That was
great.
how we started. Now, there is a fun story about how the topic came about.
Yeah, do tell.
In the department in which I teach at the University of Akron, chronologically, and you can tell just by looking at me, I'm old. Chronologically, I'm the oldest instructor, but in terms of my tenure, the number of years that I have taught, I'm the youngest. And that just happens to be that this is a second career for me. And I think it was back in 2022 for AAPC, I published an article, and it began as a piece on cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. And when I write one of these articles, I send it to y'all, and I don't generally put a title on it. Y'all do a lovely job of editing and tidying it up, and you put the titles on. And you put a really fun title. Don't blow it when reporting cannabis use. Now, for the old guy to have an article titled that brought great amusement to my colleagues who are generally a decade younger than me. So they all referred to that as the weed article. And they all wanted to know what the follow-on to the weed article was going to be. So I just couldn't resist telling them that, of course, you know, cannabis is the gateway drug. So the follow-on was psychedelics.
Naturally, right? The natural progression.
Right, exactly. So they had great fun with that. So of course, when I looked at the Category 3 codes, what would we use as our discussion vehicle to explain Category 3? It had to be the psychedelics, right?
Right. So what's after that, Bill?
Well,
the next step?
Edibles.
well, no, we have
work cut out for you now.
we have a lot of fun, and the suggestion was cocaine for coagulation.
There you go. The stimulants, I don't even know what category they start falling into. My drug, I'm not well versed.
Yeah, many of you may know that for like nosebleeds, cocaine actually is a vasoconstrictor. And if you have a nosebleed, some of the products that are used are actually cocaine based. So my clinically oriented colleagues aren't too far off, but you can imagine a department meeting where things sort of go off the rails and people start throwing these things out. So yes,
Yeah.
after cannabis, we progressed to the psychedelics, and the suggestion was cocaine for coagulation. So expect that another year or so out.
Nice.
Bill,
It gets
We'll
out.
remember that.
I don't know enough about Bill. So, Bill, I'm reading your bio at the end of the article. This is your second AAPC article following the same theme. Your background says it includes several decades providing coding audits and analysis. You currently teach at the University of Akron. What makes you an expert in psychedelics? Why do you choose to be an expert in psychedelics?
Good response.
Tough
Yeah.
question.
I'm not sure that I can claim no personal experience. I think I should say that as long as we're live and on the air. I should claim absolutely no personal experience.
You're covered.
Yeah, and I want to say that about the cannabis as well. I don't want to be like the former president and talk anything about inhaling or anything like that. So no personal experience with it, merely good reading research. We'll leave it at that.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's a great question.
So
You bring a valid point, though. Our category threes, those are the ones that are for emerging technologies. And I don't know if many people, I know a lot of people, they're so busy trying to code what's already there. They don't recognize the value in and also reporting those that may not get a financial backing. It's important to report what's happening so that eventually it can come with a value later. But first we need to see how often it's being used. So I think it's a great way to start a discussion. I think you've hit on a very strong point. So what do you think would be most important? I understand federal guidelines are a little different than state guidelines as well. So as a coder, I would imagine I need to understand and be familiar with those regulations. But what advice would you have to medical coders beyond understanding their local coding regulations?
I think the first thing is just to appreciate what those services are. Be aware of them. If you are coding for specialty or subspecialty, if you are coding at a tertiary care center, you may in fact bump up against some of these category 3 services. If you're not at that level of care, if you're at specialty care in the community setting, I think you should still be aware of these services. Just be generally aware because of the next step. Many of the new Category 1 codes that were introduced here in 2025, introduced in any new edition of CPT, many of the new Category 1 codes are Category 3 to Category 1 conversions. So each year when you see those new Category 3 codes come out, I think it's helpful that coders at least be generally familiar. Hey, what is the new emerging technology relevant to the specialties in which I code? Not because you're going to be using those codes, but just to be at least vaguely familiar with what's coming down the line in your specialty. Because 3 or 5 years out, you may see a Category 1 code for that service. And I think it'd be helpful to at least appreciate the circumstances, the evolution of that service. So just a little education and to be cognizant of what's coming down the line, if that makes sense.
And new technology can be very exciting. I know recently I learned about spinal cord injuries, that there's actually a technology of putting an implant so now the brain can connect with that device, a prosthetic device. And so I'm kind of excited to see where that's going to go. So I think it can be fun and exciting. Sometimes as we read things, we think, oh, this is kind of tedious, but it can be an element, it can have that element of excitement, and then to see where it goes if you're following that, and to see that transition from the category 3 into the category 1.
That may be the other use. A lot of times what we do is pretty dry stuff. And, we can introduce some of these ideas to add a little excitement into what it is that we're learning, what it is that we're working with. There's value there.
So I'm looking at the article here and reading about the different, for those that are just listening, when you talk psychedelics, you're talking specifically about a couple products, well, products or drugs that are being developed or that are in clinical trials currently, correct? And is that psilocybin is one of them, and
Oh,
MDMA is the
sure.
other? Is it
Yeah,
mushrooms? Yeah.
yeah,
Mushrooms and MDMA, or ecstasy is the street name is known as, right?
yeah. I mean,
So
it
those are
really,
the two main ones that are sort of being or tested right now.
yeah, it's very interesting stuff. If you think about it, both have been around for a while. Just as you said, if you walk out and you mention ecstasy, people are generally familiar with it. A club drug is what folks generally equate ecstasy with, but it's being used and it's fairly well along in trials for PTSD.
Right.
And the literature is fairly supportive of its use for PTSD. Separate and distinct from that, there are some fairly advanced trials for different uses for magic mushrooms. And if you think about that, some of those trials go back as far as the 1960s. And I mean, it's very interesting stuff. As you mention these things, everybody nods and, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. But to hear it as a legitimate medical application, that's sort of the news part of it.
Yeah, yeah. From what I understand, and I'm just paraphrasing from other sources that I can't even name, but there was a lot of maybe suppression of even trialing or experimenting with some of these drugs just because of the perceived risk to society. And so they just kind of shoved away until more recently allowance to do that, to start these clinical trials and really look into the benefits under a clinical setting, and yeah, not
Yeah,
just
and
recreation.
true clinical trials are difficult. And when you think about really doing that controlled trial, and some of the sign-offs that you have to have in getting permission through an IRB to do these, and the proper releases from patients are also very challenging. So a very serious side of that, but really interesting stuff as well.
On the coding side of it, then these category 3 codes are being built out probably more just recently because they're being used as clinical trials. Is that essentially what you're getting at? They're being expanded and
Correct. And that is the purpose, the true purpose of Category 3 codes. We are doing new things, and we need a very rigid and controlled manner to count how many times we're doing these new things. And as with all CPT codes, we want to be very, very specific about what it is exactly that we're doing. And CPT codes allow us to very, very specifically define what it is that we're doing. And then having the new code allows then providers to count and researchers to count how many times it's being done. If you flip over to the diagnosis coding side, here in the last several years, you had a sort of a generic other respiratory infection code. That other respiratory infection code started to be used with great frequency circa 2019. It was replaced with a very, very specific U code for COVID-19. And when we wanted to count how many cases of this very specific viral infection we then had a very specific code for COVID-19. Same thing on the procedure coding side. When we want to count how many times a very specific service is being rendered, we need a very specific code. And when you're doing that on these new innovative techniques, new innovative surgeries or procedures that are still under investigation, that's the purpose of the Category 3 codes.
Well, I can tell that you're a really good educator because I was able to follow a lot of that, and I'm not a coder. So thanks, Bill.
Thank
Alex,
you.
I'm gonna have to hop off. As I mentioned earlier, we're running RevCon right now at the same time, and I've got to jump on to our networking lunch. So I'll pass it over to you. But it was good talking with you and Yvonne, Bill. Appreciate you both for being
Dave,
on.
would you make me host again?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
And
You have
thanks.
a great RevCon, and we will see you at HealthCon in just a few weeks.
Yep, real
About a
soon.
month.
All right, we'll
Okay.
see you.
Take care, Dave.
Well, Bill, it's been so much fun getting to hear your story. And we didn't really touch on your history in the business side of healthcare and the revenue cycle side. Would you give us a little bit of background about what led you in? You said this is your second career and you're a professor now. We were running short on time, but maybe you have a Cliff Notes version you could share, Bill.
It is. Being a professor at the University of Akron is a second career. My prior career was in practice management, first as an employed group practice administrator, and then as the owner of an entity that sold practice management services. And in that entity, my focus was really on distribution formulas. And if you pause and think about that, that is going to have a lot to do with relative value units. And if you think about that, what drives relative value units but coding? As we moved along in that process, my colleague retired. He's now somewhere down in South Carolina enjoying retirement. And I had a decision to make as to whether I was going to retire or do something different. And towards the end of that career, I was spending a lot of time teaching physicians and healthcare providers how to do this, how the RVU process, the coding process worked, and how their distribution formulas were working. So in lieu of retirement, I had the opportunity to begin a second career in teaching. And that's how the College of Health and Human Sciences at the University of Akron ended up with an old guy teaching in their healthcare administration program.
Oh, neat. Yeah, and I would imagine you enjoy teaching.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of fun, as you can tell from just our interaction. It really is quite a lot of fun. The folks I work with at the University of Akron are a lot of fun to work with. You can tell by the teasing about the weed article and the psychedelics article and their encouragement for other articles. We do have a lot of fun. So in terms of second careers, I did well.
Oh, great. Yvonne, do you have any questions for Bill?
I was just going to make the comment that as a medical coding side of things, it's so important to emphasize documentation and to encourage the physicians to actually document specifically so that as coders, that it's applied correctly, the correct code. I work in an area of compliance, so I need to be able to see that what they're coding for is supported by that documentation, which is probably the hardest part of being a physician, is not only just helping people, but to translate it into documentation so that it can be supported. You have anything that you'd like to share as far as the ethical and legal considerations, just to remind the medical coder to keep that integrity of what they're coding for this area?
Well, first, I'll say that specificity is an ugly word when you're talking with providers, isn't it? And it has been a challenge since 2015 when on the diagnosis coding side, when we switched from ICD-9 to ICD-10, you have this richness in the diagnosis code set where there's all this lush specificity, and it is a significant challenge with providers who are very, very busy to try to get them to have their diagnostic statements match the level of specificity in the code set is a challenge, particularly when we get to on the auditing side with HCCs and things like that, which are in the news very recently with a number of concerns with the Medicare Part C, the Medicare Advantage plans that are receiving some level of scrutiny. So that word specificity has been problematic for better than a decade. And I'm afraid I don't have any magic bullet to address that. I wish I did. I wish I did a decade ago when I was working directly with providers, with practices, with healthcare systems. But unfortunately, I don't. What I would tell coders is particularly those who are working with providers at teaching hospitals, is never forget that most of these folks are scientists. And particularly in teaching hospitals, they are teachers. And when you interact with them, try to engage the scientist. Try to engage the teacher when you have that question. Yes, they may not be happy that you're interrupting them. Yes, they may not be happy that you're questioning them. But if you keep in your head that they're a scientist, their training, their background is as a scientist. And if you're at a teaching hospital, that's part of their role. If you engage them from that perspective, if your questions are from those perspectives, I've found that you get a little different, and by different, I mean a somewhat more positive interaction. Rather than you did this wrong or you didn't give me enough information. That approach I've found to be a little more pleasant, a little more efficacious if you try to reach out and touch that inner scientist in particularly the physician providers. And if you're at a teaching hospital, you try to engage that part of them. I found that to be helpful. Does that help you?
Specificity is not a swear word.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Oh.
And it's all in the approach. It's all in the approach to get it right. Well, I look forward to seeing you. I hope you'll come to HealthCon.
Thank you.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. Yvonne, it was great having you. Will you both stay with us just for a minute while I wind down the broadcast? Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Dave is closing down RevCon right now, and our next conference is HealthCon, which is at the very beginning of April. Hope to see you all there. And then we will be back live with another AAPC Social Hour in 2 weeks. Bill, Yvonne, hold on, and I'm gonna take us off our live stream right now, and we will see everybody later. Bye, everybody.